La 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 la. Screen peeking. Bop bop bop.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 40 of Screen Peeking, a weekly podcast where Ziggy and I get together to talk about video games and anything video game related. I'm Nick, and this is Ziggy. He's here with me.
Hi.
And let's just jump right into how we always start the show, Zig. How have you been doing? What have you been playing this week? I guess 2 weeks.
Been doing pretty solid. We did not record last weekend, but I mean, I'm sure it's the same up for you. Crazy heat wave coming through.
Oh, it's insane.
Up to, God, I think it got to 46 where I am, which
Holy
is
shit.
ridiculous. Is stupid. I think that's like 116 degrees Fahrenheit. It was dumb. I was driving up like an hour somewhere, and like the little plastic cover under your front bumper on your car, like a piece of that literally melted off and was scraping like on the road as I was driving. It was nuts. It was crazy. It was the worst heat I've ever been in.
Wild.
But things have cooled down quite a bit, at least here, which is good because now I can go outside again. But yeah, I mean, within all that heat, I was just kind of hunkering down, playing some video games. Most notably, the fact that Ultra Kill has some new levels out now. Some more content.
He won't stop talking about this game.
I will not. And they're like probably the best content we've gotten yet in the game, and that makes me really confident for the future of where this is going, because all these new levels and the new mechanics that they added and stuff like that just feels totally like a reaction to what people are having fun with before, what worked in the levels prior, and just like learning from that and then making it even better. The big thing, they added in a new like grapple hook arm, and
you love those.
Always make a game better, and fuck, it is so good. They take away what I kind of didn't love about the meat hook in Doom Eternal, which is it was like on a cooldown, and the mobility of it was just kind of limited, and they essentially turned it into Nero's grapple hook from Devil May Cry, where on smaller enemies you just pull them towards you, and that feels awesome, and then on bigger enemies you pull yourself towards them.
Right.
But for how mobility based Ultra Kill is, and especially for how like proximity and distance with enemies is so important, it just totally changes the combat. They added in another like bigger, tankier flying enemy, which totally complements that as well, because you can fling yourself off of them, and it's awesome. There's a new boss fight, and it is like the coolest boss fight I've played all year. If you plan on playing it, I kind of don't want to spoil it because it's just like the coolest.
There's a chance
thing.
still.
It has like one of my favorite gameplay moments of this year. I think it is fucking awesome. But yeah, it's so cool. Other than that, I've been playing Cruelty Squad, which, Nick, I think that this is a game you need to put up here for gameplay. I'm looking up a trailer right now.
Oh boy! Hopefully, I have it all ready to show.
It is a game that really needs to be looked at, I think. It is a...
Are you sending it on the Discord?
Describe this game.
Oh,
yeah, I'm sending you a link right now. I don't really know how to describe this game. It is an immersive
Okay, let's see
sim.
if this is ready to play in the background here. Nope. Hold on. Continue.
Anyways, yeah, it's sort of an immersive sim with sort of like Hitman or Deus Ex, where you go in, you have a target that you need to kill, and you go in and can kill that target within the level any way you want. But what drew me to this game is how it looks. It looks like you're playing right now. It looks aggressively bad is how I would describe it. In a way that's like fully intentional. Like it is an art style. It's definitely an acquired taste. I think most people is pretty off-putting. To me, I fuck with the way this game looks so much. Like I genuinely love it. But I mean, aside from that, it's also just an insanely fun game. Like its level design, I would say, is on par with something like Hitman in terms of the freedom and all the hidden routes and stuff that you can find. It's really, really tightly designed. There's some really crazy like sort of bio mod upgrades that you can put on your character, because the general theme of it is just everything is kind of disgusting, including the upgrades. So I mean, one of them is like a external intestine that there it is, that you use as a grappling hook.
What the heck? I don't even know how to describe what I'm looking at.
Invisibility cloak. Yeah. Oh yeah, this gun he's using, it like rapidly morphs the DNA of your targets. They turn into just like amorphous blobs of flesh. You can shit out your feet to do a double jump. It is it's such an experience. It's such a fucking Ziggy game.
No kidding.
But it's also
a great
like,
running animation.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Usually I play, like faster paced shooters. This totally isn't that. It's way more like tactical and slow paced, and despite how it looks, actually quite thoughtful and strategic. I don't know. I really like it. I'm not done with it. I've already beat all the levels in it, but I'm totally not done. Like, there's all sorts of secrets, like secret upgrades and weapons and levels and stuff that I intend on finding, because it's just such a fun gameplay loop. But definitely an acquired taste. I would say if you're listening on audio, go look up a trailer of it or something.
There's no way to describe it.
Oh, it's... Yeah, no, I'm not even going to try to. Just go look it up. But what about you? What have you been playing?
Just Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, the week after E3, I didn't really play much at all. I kind of took a little bit of time to relax, and because I think I put like 5 or 6 videos out over the 4 or 5 days that I was kind of trying to watch everything, absorb everything that was happening. So took a little bit of a break, and then just focused on house and like home stuff that I needed to get done. But this last weekend, Taylor went away, and I had a ton of game time available. So I think I said the last time, or the last episode we had, that I was really looking forward to playing a bunch of Yakuza Like a Dragon, and actually diving into the story, because I felt like I didn't have enough time to really watch all the cutscenes and get to play a bit. So that was the plan. What ended up happening, though, was through a friend, I was able to download, sign in his account, and then download Ghost of Tsushima and give that game a try. And once I started playing it, I couldn't put it down. So I've been playing that game. I beat it on Monday. I started it on Saturday. And I played it basically from almost 3 days straight, pretty much from like 5 in the morning till like 9:30 at night. And did like a ton of side content. Like pretty much just stopping for the occasional break or lunch and things like that. But just like fully absorbed that game. Got really, I think, really good at the combat, and that was the part about the game that really surprised me and impressed me. As watching this game from afar, I completely compared it to Assassin's Creed, and while I still would, I thought the hack and slash part of the combat wasn't going to be as in depth as it actually is, and as I didn't think it would require much from me. But I'm playing on lethal difficulty, and that's the hardest one that I had access to starting out. And it initially, at the beginning of the game, you do die from one hit. As you level up your character and you start to get stronger, you can definitely take like a couple, maybe 3 hits from an enemy. But the stronger ones will still kill you in like one hit, especially in duels. So the reaction time, you have to be much faster to reacting. The parries are much harder to perfect, but it really makes it so that you can pretty much have a duel with an enemy. And I sent a couple of clips to my friends and my brother where it was like this same enemy, I reacted slightly too slow, and he killed me like a quick little slice, and I was done. And then I did this, load up, you restart the fight, and I did it perfectly, and I didn't get hit once, and I just finished him in about 10 seconds. And it was like that kind of difference of like you're hitting your moves just perfectly, you just destroy the person. It's not this long drawn out fight, but if you do mess up, it's like one mistake and you're dead. Just like a real life fight, right? So that was really, really cool. That difficulty, I think, is really rewarding, and I think is absolutely worth playing the game on that difficulty. It's the tutorial levels are pretty brutal, because like one little arrow, you're killing all these guys in melee combat, then a little arrow thwacks you in the back and you're done. You have to start back at your checkpoint. That's a little, disappointing, but once you get past that, then, or if you unlock the ability to deflect arrows with your sword, then it becomes a lot easier, and you can actually kind of take your time, plan out your ways of attack, and you have 4 different stances you can unlock, and they're all great for different types of enemies, like spear enemies, sword enemies, shield enemies, and like the really big thick boys. So like there's a lot of depth when it comes to like how do you face off against these different types and against the archers that are further away, or other guys throwing bombs, or other guys poisoning you and making you not able to react as fast, and things like that. It's really, really cool. And yeah, just totally fell in love with it, and I think I'm almost 100% done with it now. So
Ooh.
as soon as I finished it, though, next day they announced that the PS5 director's cut version, and I guess it's also on PS4, but they announced the director's cut version of this game. And it just made me laugh, because I'm like, of course, right after I beat it, they're like, oh, and you're getting this like better 3D audio, and you're getting all these other things for PS5, and the load times already aren't that long when you're playing that PS4 game on the PS5, so that's not a really big deal. But it does have an extra island with more content and more cosmetic things you can unlock, and I'm like, damn, that would have been kind of cool. So,
out of curiosity, is the
it.
PS5 version only available in like the director's cut?
Yeah.
Or is that's kind of annoying. It's unfortunate. That's the second time Sony's done this, because they did it with Death Stranding as well, where I feel like compared to the way Xbox is doing it, where all their games.
Wait, what did you ask?
If the PS5 upgrade is only available on the director's cut version.
Oh, well, the director's cut version of the game is available on PS4 and PS5, and I know that you can upgrade your regular PS4 version to the PS4 director's cut. I think it's like $10, or it's like not a huge cost. It's like you're buying a little bit of content, which I think is fine. And then if you want, you could also, for a bit more money, you can upgrade your PS4 version to the full PS5 director's cut version or something like that. Anyways, it gets complicated because that's how they do things now. But you know, there is options.
I still feel like I'd rather just it work on PS5, you know. I don't know. Every time I see that, I get frustrated, just because I feel like we're past that, and maybe I just want to be past that. But
I just want to be past it.
Yeah. Maybe I'm past it more than publishers actually are.
Yeah, one other notable thing that I think is cool, from other than like a new island, is that they're adding Japanese voice sync. And I thought that was really weird. When I started the game, I played it with Japanese audio and English subtitles. But right away, I noticed that the lip sync was for English. Like right away, I was like, that looks weird. Why is it doing that? And then I let it slide, and it wasn't a big deal. And then just because of the intensity of the combat and not actually knowing Japanese, when characters in the game are like, oh, Jin, over here, we got to go do this thing, I wouldn't know what they're saying, and I could not read the bottom of my screen while I'm trying to deflect and parry and dodge attacks all at the same time. It was too hard, because one mistake and I had to go back to a checkpoint, so I ended up swapping it back to English. But I think it's really cool that they're adding in a lip sync for the Japanese audio, because I would definitely appreciate that on an easier difficulty.
It's weird they didn't have that originally.
Yeah,
it seems 100%. Like a kind of a, I don't know, especially for a game that's set in Japan.
Super
it seems weird to leave that out. Whatever. But yeah, at least they're adding it. Better late than never.
Yeah.
That sounds cool though. I do like that style of combat difficulty where enemies aren't, especially tanky or anything. The challenge mostly just comes from one mess up and you're dead. I always think that's a very exciting way to do challenging combat. Is that about all you have to say on Ghosts?
It is. We can move right on into our Psychonauts Impressions, since that's been our Game Club game of the month. And why don't you start? Because I think it sounds like you've gotten further than me. We just briefly talked about it before we started the show.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember exactly where I left off. I guess I definitely played a good chunk. I think I've beaten 4 or 5 of the sort of Mind Palace, I don't know what to call them, level things. And yeah, so far I've played this a little bit before, years ago, and it didn't really click for me. But going back to it now, I like it way more than I did back then. Where just the whole vibe of it is so cozy and good. Just kind of walking around camp, and it has that kind of chill music playing, and you're talking to these really, really, cool designed and fun characters. It's just such a good kind of chill, wholesome experience to go through. The general story and vibe of it just feels like a Saturday Saturday morning cartoon that's
Oh yeah,
like really
great example.
unique and fun and cool. With like really really solid character writing, and the character designs I think are very 2000s, but also very fun. I don't know, and then the story now is kind of going in some fun places that are cool, but I don't know, every level is just so unique and creative. Like every single one you go into, that first one, I think that's where you said you left off with the battlefield, I thought was the low point of what I've played so far, because after that,
Okay.
you go inside like Agent Nine's head, being like the cool collected agent he is, starts out just like a perfect cube. So he has everything, super intact, but then you do something and then leaks kind of start sprouting and all this chaos starts coming forth from it until, you have to like package it all back into this tight little cube of his brain. Or another one, it's like this cool sort of like 70s like disco party that you're going through, and it's just like this awesome music and like dancing and stuff everywhere. It's just every single one is like so different, and every single one is also just so awesome, unique. Oh, I remember where I left off. You go inside like a fish's head, and there's this little like fish city in there, and because it's a fish and you're a person, you're like a giant walking through it. And they'll treat you like Godzilla. They're like, calling in the military and stuff, and they're like smashing through it. It's just so
That's great.
creative and cool. And I totally think I'm gonna keep playing it. Outside of For Game Club, it's got its hooks in me pretty hard. Also, I mean, maybe it's just kind of because it's a little bit remastered on the Xbox. Like it runs at a high resolution, at least, like not cutscenes, but regular gameplay does. But it does still look really good by today's standards. And
Yeah, I totally agree.
gameplay wise, I thought it felt pretty good to play too, and some platforming and stuff. It like if this was released today by an indie studio, I'd totally be like, yeah, that's just kind of the stylized look they're going for, is this sort of low poly look. But I think just the art design of everything fits so well with the limitations of the PS2 that it's really solid.
Yeah, I totally agree. I only did that first. It's funny because I thought I played maybe like 4 hours, but now I'm guessing I must have done about 2, right? Over like sitting down 2 different times to play it, and all I can really say, because I can't really comment on the levels since I only did that first one that you said is like a low point for you, and I just found, for me, when you get to that weird snot thing that can like teleport you back to like the beginning of the level, I didn't know what that was, and I did not understand why I was suddenly back at the beginning. And I remember getting lost in that level, being like, what am I supposed to even do? Not realize, I thought that was the end. And so like I went into that like bubble, and then it like popped me back to the beginning, and I'm like, did I beat it? Did I not? Like, what's going on? And I just, like, being an idiot, I guess, I was just like running around the level like, what am I doing? Then I get back to where it was and realize, oh, I'm supposed to walk past that thing. But since it was just so bright green and like right in my face and like making a noise, I thought I'm supposed to interact with this thing, and you can. So I just didn't realize it was a checkpoint. So it was just so bizarre to me for that. And then but like honestly, everything I played I did really enjoy. I even that was just a little setback, but I actually liked the platforming. I liked swinging on like the different like objects that you can swing across in that level, and I liked the dialogue. I liked the characters. I found it really funny. I found like the conversations really great, and actually made me laugh a couple times. And just like the character designs are so weird in a great way. I can't stop looking at them being like, that is so, like, how do you come up with this? And you just I don't know how you do this, but I love it. And I love how some characters just like look flat out like, there is that fish character, right? Or am I thinking something else? Or is there like, is it just because you said fish that I'm thinking that now?
Yeah, I'm talking about like an actual fish, not a person who talks. Yeah.
Like some of the people there though, like you look at them and they're like bugged eyes, and like you would totally make a comment about how they how bizarre they look, but they all act like they're all buddies, and it's normal for that world. And yeah, I don't know. I just from what I experienced, it was mostly the dialogue and like the writing and the characters that I found really, really fun. And I just don't think it's the kind of game I wanted at that time, because again, I started playing it, and then you have to think I started Yakuza Like a Dragon right after, and then I started Ghost of Tsushima after that as well, or during the same time, and I was like, these games are ones I'd much rather play. And while I like platformers, I'm not like the biggest fan of them. Like it has to be like a Metroidvania type of thing for me to want to do that. And so I felt like I got an idea of like how it's going to progress. Like obviously you're going to get powers and tell me to collect a bunch of things to like level up my psychic abilities or something. And so I was collecting some stuff and I was just running around and I did that first little training boot camp mission thing. And that was about it for me. But yeah, I really liked it. I think I'm ready to play the second one before I finish the first one.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was kind of thinking this same thing of like, I kind of just want to play Psychonauts 2 because, you know, it's more modern or whatever before I started playing this one. But when I actually started playing it, I think it feels so like modern already to me that I don't know if I still feel that way. Also, yeah, in terms of powers, there's one specifically that I want to talk about because I think it's so cool, where essentially you get this, they call it a levitate ability, but that isn't really what it is. Essentially, you're levitating on this like little ball of magic underneath you. That it basically turns the platforming style of the game from, you know, traditional running and jumping to like Super Monkey Ball, where it's very rolling ball based. So it's, you know, a lot of momentum, a lot of, you know, going on ramps and jumps and stuff like that, as opposed to, you know, basic platforming. And it like totally changes the style of the way the game plays. And I thought that's super cool that you could just seamlessly transition between regular platforming and, you know, monkey ball platforming. I don't know, super cool.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, I quite liked it. That's all I have to say. I could
we don't have to talk about it forever. But
yeah. In terms of not being similar to platformers, I kind of feel like I'm in the same boat as you. But for me, platformers do get a hook in me if they offer something more than just the platforming. Like that's why Mario doesn't really do it for me, because it's mostly, you know, just a platformer. But Celeste, you know, I love Celeste because it had the music and the story and all those other things to it. And I think this does the same thing for me that Celeste did, where I'm enjoying the platforming enough. If it was just that, I probably wouldn't still be into the game. But because of the story and the characters and the writing and how funny and charming it is, it's totally got its hooks in me.
This is totally unrelated, or in the slightest way it is, but like you talking about that and the platforming and stuff, and then bringing up Mario made me realize why I think Mario Sunshine is my favorite 3D Mario, in that I think it has the least like amount of platforming for like the main story like levels that you do, because it just has these big open worlds that like you can just run around, and most of it is like, yeah, you can jump up onto this roof by jumping on that thing and doing that, but like a lot of it is just using little like tricks to get up onto certain like platforms or ceilings and finding little secrets, but then you're mostly just doing certain objectives. And I just thought that was, when you're talking about that, I'm like, I wonder if that's why I like Mario Sunshine more than the other ones, because it just doesn't have as much of that Mario platforming. But yeah, like Psychonauts, like you said, it doesn't feel aged, and that's definitely not why I don't want to play it before the second one. I think I just want something flashy and new. But like, yeah, it does control pretty good. I think I just had to invert one of I can't remember which direction. you feel, if you know whether it feels right or not, but I don't remember which if it's vertical or horizontal that I wanted to swap, but one of them just felt wrong at the beginning, but otherwise everything else feels totally fine. And if anyone out there is like interested in playing Psychonauts, I definitely would recommend trying the first one, because I don't think you'll be lacking anything. I think it definitely plays well, and I definitely think that the characters and, like you said, the look of it still holds up just fine. So with that, let's move on to the topic of the show. PS5, Xbox Series X, they've been out for about, just a little under 8 months. And you have had the Xbox Series X pretty much since the beginning, right? More or less.
Yeah, I think I got mine in like December or something. So
okay.
A month later, but yeah.
And then I've had the PS5, and sure, I have a Series X now, but we thought it'd be fun to have Ziggy kind of review the Series X, and I'll review the PS5, and more so in just talking about their features, their exclusives, things like that, like what things are so special about what features are so special about the console, and we can kind of talk about both of them as we're going through our list of things to talk about, and just kind of really like come to a conclusion on like which one's the most fun to play with for us, and like for each of us. So I think that'd be really interesting to go over, because I definitely have a very clear winner for myself, and And I'm sure you can make an educated guess based off of what you know about both. So
Yeah. So I guess I'll start us off.
okay.
So yeah, one of the things I want to touch on most is there's a lot of features that are promised with these consoles. And, they're in there and they work perfectly great, but, sort of things of, is something a gimmick or does it actually change the way you use it? So, for me, Quick Resume was kind of like that, where I saw it and I'm like, that's really cool. How often do I actually, switch between games, though? But I will say in the long term, when it works, it's very nice. It's something I don't really think about ever, but when I turn on a game, I'm like, oh, I'm just right here. I love it. The issue for me with Quick Resume, and this isn't really how they advertised it, is that probably only about half the games on my Xbox actually support Quick Resume, which is strange because you'd think that would kind of work just on a hardware level. And that's the way they described it, was it working on a hardware level. So every single one of your games will work with it. But from my experience, it basically every single Series X enhanced game works with Quick Resume. And there's some Xbox One games that work with it, but not a ton. So I don't know. It's just really hit or miss, and it doesn't actually tell you if it supports it or not, which is kind of frustrating. So, the dream of being able to just not even worry about saving or anything, just like switch to another game, I don't really find myself doing that because I don't trust it yet. But aside from that, totally. I mean, my power can go out, my Xbox can be off for like a week, I power back on, and I can still jump right into Forza Horizon 4, which is super cool. Like every single
That's
time
the
I do
coolest
that,
part.
like, yeah, it's very nice. But yeah, I think just the reliability of that isn't quite where I wanted it to be.
Right.
Have you had the same experience with your Xbox?
Similar. I haven't noticed it not working for any games, but I haven't been playing a ton of them. Like I said, Yakuza, and then I think I have Halo 5 on there as well that I've been playing through on Legendary, and both of them like boot up quick. I could absolutely be wrong on what I'm about to say, but from what I feel, it seems like Quick Resume, at least for Yakuza, doesn't feel like it loads into the game faster than if I closed it completely and then loaded it back up. And that's based off of today, as I went to play it, and I went to Quick Resume, or I loaded it up, and it was already in that Quick Resume list, right? And and then it said connect controller, but my controller was already connected. Like once I loaded into the game, it was like as if your controller got disconnected or something. And it was like press A, and I pressed A, and it didn't work. So then I had to close the game. So I closed it and I reopened it, and it felt like the same amount of time to get to that same like screen. So I guess the only difference is I had the start screen, not the in-game pause menu. But really, other than that, I don't know. So I don't think it's so special for how fast it loads into something, but it is cool. It is cool when I loaded into Halo 5. Again, that's an Xbox One game though, but it is optimized for Series X, and that was like really nice to be able to swap from Yakuza, went over to Halo, and it's just like boom, you're right in your middle of your mission, exactly where you were. That's super cool.
Yeah, for me, I think it's more just the like exact save state of where you left that I really enjoy.
The power loss thing you're talking about.
Doesn't load in crazy fast, but it's mostly just I can be playing Forza or something. I stop playing, play something else, jump back in, and I'm exactly where I left it. I like momentum and all. I can be in the middle of a race and come back to that race. And that's what I enjoy most about it, is how easily I can put a game down without getting to a quote unquote good stopping point.
Before you move off of the Quick Resume thing, because I do think it's like worth noting here that for me, like the thing I also really like about it is I don't know how many games it can go up to, but let's say like, what is it, like 5 or something like that, around there?
Yeah, something like that.
The fact that you can have like around 5 games or apps all loaded, like ready to go at a time, is so nice. And the fact that the PS5 can just do 2 just kills me. And and it does have that, like, you just swap between the apps, but it's basically you have to press your PlayStation button, you have to go down to the thing, and then you're like, okay, select that, and then it's like, do you want to swap? Yep. And then here's your most recent apps you've used, and then okay, swap to this one. And then just like, it does it kind of the same way as Quick Resume works, but it doesn't hold it if like the power goes out, doesn't keep a save state at all. And the fact that it's only 2, if it really blows, like 3 would be a game changer. 3 would change everything, because how many people watch Netflix on their console, or watch, like, I watch Netflix on my console, or I watch like some video service on my console, and because that's the one in my living room is my PS5. And the fact that if we're going to watch a show for that evening and I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima, there you go, that's the 2. But if I want to load into anything else, whatever, it'll keep whatever I just swapped out of, but the one that I did not just swap out of is now like closed up, and it won't even give you a warning. So if you forgot, it's just like boom, you forgot to save or something, it's just closed. Anyways, I wanted to bring that up at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think another, I think it's kind of an unsung hero of the Series X, to be honest, is smart delivery, where one of those things, even more so than Quick Resume, I looked at and was just kind of like, okay, cool. Like it didn't seem particularly novel or interesting to me. Like its ability to know what the right version of a game is to me is like, I mean, yeah, of course it should know how to do that, except seeing how poorly it was handled on the other side. And that's not even like, oh, PlayStation's incompetent with this. It's just making me realize, oh, maybe this is a lot harder than I gave it credit for. And the fact that with Xbox, yeah, I can, as soon as a game gets a patch to work on that, it downloads that patch and I get the right thing. If I'm getting a new game, I always get the best version of it. There isn't any of the, trying to fuck with your saves and getting the right version on and having to have both on your console at once and deleting the other. And, I've heard so many horror stories of people like losing their save data doing that, or, having to download a game like 3 times because they did it wrong the first time. And all like just getting rid of all of that nonsense and just making it work exactly as you would expect and hope that it would, I think is kind of the theme of the Series X, where it's not flashy, but it just works really, really well, and I never have to think about it, and I love it for that.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had any like terrible situations with the PlayStation, but I have heard of like the horror stories of people with their situations. I just have a funny one where with Resident Evil 8, I went to delete it the other day because I've beaten it now. And went to uninstall it and delete the files, and it showed I had the PS4 version and the PS5 version installed. I guess it just did both when I clicked install from like the store menu, and I'm like, I never chose to install the PS4 version, it just did it for both. And I'm like, that's just kind of funny to me. Like it just took up a lot of hard drive space.
Yeah. Why is this game like fucking 170 gigabytes?
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I've never looked at it, but yeah, deleting it, I definitely noticed.
Yeah.
What else is there that's cool about the series?
Actually, one thing I want to mention though, in terms of long-term usability, is that I have 2 Series X controllers, and both of them have begun to malfunction one way or another after only around 7 months, which to me is way too short for that to be happening.
That's wild.
And both of them are fairly mild. Like, both are still perfectly usable. It's just frustrating that they're showing signs of aging or whatever. Where my blue one, the A button is kind of sticky sometimes, which is usually what controllers do after like 3 years of use. But it's, again, it's a 1/6 of that, so it shouldn't be happening. And the other one just has some really bizarre connection issues where sometimes it works fine, but other time I just cannot get it to connect to my Xbox or my computer or anything. And then I'll just kind of let it sit there for a couple weeks and try to use it again. It's totally fine. It connects like a charm. I don't know what that is, but it makes it like, that's my preferred controller because all the buttons work properly, but then it'll randomly just not work at all, so I have to switch to my other one, which isn't as nice. And it's weird, like that. It's maybe just a sign of poor build quality, which is disappointing. But other than that, I mean, the controllers themselves are good. It's just, I wish they were a little more durable.
That's very interesting. I'll have to keep that in mind. I'm not using the Series X controller. I'm using my Elite one on it now. But but I'm definitely curious to see how long my regular one lasts now, because I'm using it on the PC. So
yeah. The one really nice thing about these new controllers, though, actually, this is something I only learned later, is they have this really cool sort of like quick swap feature where, I often will switch my controller from my computer to my Xbox or whatever, just depending on what I'm doing. But they have this really cool thing where if you double tap the sync button, it just goes right to your Xbox, and then if you hold it for a couple seconds, it'll just go right to my computer. So whatever I'm doing, I don't have to go through the whole process of, going to my Bluetooth settings and syncing it up, or, pressing the button on my Xbox and pressing the button on the controller to get it sync. I just quickly tap it, it's over there, hold it, it's over here. Just have those two presets, and that's super convenient. I love that shit. Like,
I didn't
again,
know that.
just
That's
sort
awesome.
of thing, like, such a theme throughout the whole Series X experience of just, like, it just works well. It's just someone thought about it, and they really thought about it well.
That's really cool. How do you set that up?
I'm pretty sure it's just automatic.
Oh, it's just a thing automatically that happens.
Yeah, so if you double tap it, it'll just go to whatever Xbox it was last synced up to, and then if you hold it, it'll just go to whatever last Bluetooth device it was on.
I'm definitely going to use that.
Yeah, it's very nice. The last thing I wanted to touch on, though, is exclusive games. Because, or even just games in general. Like, one of the way I feel with this Xbox is I kind of still feel like I'm using an Xbox One. Like, I never have done a mid-generation console upgrade. Like, I never got the Series X. When I got a PS4, I just got the PS4 Pro, so I didn't have that upgrade experience. But this just kind of feels like how I would imagine that would feel, where I'm largely playing the same games I was before. I'm just playing them. They look kind of prettier, and they load a little bit faster, and the experience is a little bit smoother. But overall, the whole, next gen-ness of it, I don't think is super in your face, which is maybe for better for worse. Like, I think on one level, just sticking to what works is a great option. You don't need to totally redesign things if it's already working, because then you end up with some issues that I've heard on the PS5 where things that they were used to on the PS4 menu just weren't there. Certain features were missing, stuff like that. And you just kind of, eliminate those frustrations. But the excitement of having a new console isn't quite there with this one. And that's not really a negative as much as sort of just it's something to note. And I think part of that comes from the experience of the console. And a big part of it is that I'm still playing Xbox One games for the most part. Like, I'm playing the occasional new, enhanced for Series X thing. But most of those enhanced Series X games came out before this console came out. So they're still, were made for the Xbox One. Or I don't know. There's not really games coming out. Part of that's COVID and it being 2021. And E3 did give me a lot of hope that will change in the future, because a lot of those did look pretty fucking next gen, which I'm excited about. But yeah, I think games right now could definitely be in a better spot.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying about the kind of that mid-gen change feeling. It's like that to a greater extent. Of course, it is still at least feels a little bit more flashy, or a little bit more exciting. There are some newer features than you would get with just a little bit more powerful version of the system. But I totally agree with you with how you feel about that, as I do feel that way to a point. And then of course I am a little bit more excited with my Xbox because I haven't had an Xbox since 2017, I think, maybe even earlier. And so for me to kind of get back in, and then I was like a kid on Christmas when I could see my 360 games that I had downloaded. I remembered from back in like 2010, like from high school, and being like, oh man, I remember going to my buddy's place and playing like Explosion Man, or some of these other games I found, or Elo Milo, and like I just had a great time just going back through that library and just combing through, re-downloading games, trying them out, deleting them, and just like going through and be like, that's a great bit of nostalgia right there. So that definitely brought more excitement than playing the games I was already playing on a better system, or a more powerful system. And then of course Game Pass just changed everything for me. Like being able to finally, like, we've been talking about Game Pass forever, and I've been using it on PC like since it's been a thing. And now to have that whole ecosystem and be able to swap between my console and my PC and have a bigger library or other games that I couldn't play on my PC now available on my console was super, super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a sort of game industry bunny perspective, I think all these things have been really working for Xbox, at least in a public perception way, where before the Series X, in sort of enthusiast groups, you'd often hear people say like, "Oh yeah, Game Pass is pretty cool," but Xbox One still underpowered. It's still kind of whatever console. Still had that horrible reputation for launch. Like whenever people talked about the Xbox, it was usually because they were talking about the fact that it doesn't have any games, or they were talking about its shitty launch. Like it was almost always in a negative light. But now I, way more than before, I hear people talking about it like, oh, the Series S, it's such a good budget console, or people way more talking about how good Game Pass is, outside of just enthusiast circles, where I keep talking to people who aren't, the hardcore level of gamer. They don't listen to gaming podcasts and stuff, but they're, fully subscribed to Game Pass and love it and are playing all these games. Just actually, yeah, I gave my old Xbox One to my sister and her boyfriend, and because they live together, and her boyfriend was telling me that because he doesn't really play video games too much, but he was telling me that he's subscribed to it, and he was asking me what on there is good and stuff like that. So it's cool seeing their optics totally change from being kind of the butt of a lot of jokes to what it is now, and it's everything Microsoft has been working towards with this in the last 5 years. It seems like is actually coming to fruition, which is cool to see.
Yeah. What did you suggest when he asked, what do you suggest for games on Game Pass? What did you give him as a suggestion?
I can't remember. I think he said that he liked shooters, so I said to check out Titanfall 2.
Okay.
There's a couple other ones. I honestly can't remember. I just kind of asked him what genres he's into, and then gave him my favorites of those genres.
Yeah, also to go off of what you were saying, like the fact that with pretty much anybody, regardless of what they have access to, who's remotely interested in gaming and been like, I haven't really been into gaming most of my life, but I kind of want to see what's out there now. Like, what's the what's the best bang for my buck right now? And whether you're buy a console or not, you're get Game Pass. And it's just it's the best option for anybody who's interested in playing games. And then find out what you like, and then if you want a PlayStation, then you'll know later on. But definitely, I wouldn't suggest for someone to run out. Or if you're a Canadian, you're buying it, you're paying $700 for a console, and then another 90 or 80. I think it's $90 for the PS5 games now, because they cost $10 more, which is ridiculous. That's something I have on my notes here to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Series S is such a good console for someone who is, getting back into gaming or getting into gaming in the first place, because it's as cheap as the Nintendo Switch, but it has so much more. It is a powerful modern console. It can play any game that you throw at it, and you have Game Pass. So, somebody who's kind of just getting back into gaming, you don't want to spend 60 and or 80 or $90 if you're in Canada on every single game you want to play. You just $15, and you have, like you said, you have this massive swath of games. You can see if you're getting back into gaming, what have I missed in the last 10 years? Or if you're getting into it in the first place, what do I like? There's, a whole buffet of games here. What am I into? What catches my fancy? So I think I have actually recommended that to a couple people of, I'm going to get a next-gen console. I don't really play too many video games. What do you recommend? It's always Series S for me is a fairly easy answer, just because it's so accessible.
I want to bring up something with the PS5. So obviously we were talking about how it felt like a mid-generation for the Xbox. I definitely felt like the PS5 did a good job of making their console feel like a actual next-gen console, thanks to that controller. Besides the SSD stuff, which is very nice, I don't think that was something that made it feel next gen for me. But the controller definitely did. And the controller was that thing that made me want to have family over. Come on, guys, you have to come over and play this Astro's Playroom. The rumble features, all that stuff's really, really fun. And that was that initial, you get the first couple weeks with the new system that you're just this is so cool. I really love this thing. And you're playing the game. And that was such a great bundle, having a game with the console too. I love it when companies do that. I love it when Wii Sports was with the Wii, stuff like that. That's just so great, just to show off the features of the controller. And I played Astro's Playroom a ton. That was so much fun. Had parents and my brother over just like to play with the game and just see how it feels. And I still like, I haven't played Returnal. I hear that one's great, but from what I've played, that's still the best. Astro's Playroom is the best game like to use all those features, and of course it's made for it, so you'd expect that. But the other feature I really like on the controller, that I don't use but I think is really cool, is the fact that you can use the microphone and have the audio coming out of the controller without using a headset. And if you want to chat with a friend but you don't have a headset, just that's a really cool feature to have, and at least you have an option to talk with friends even if you don't have a headset, or maybe the current one you have broke and your buddies want to play a game that night, or you're just too lazy to walk across the room. I mean, I just think it's cool that you have the option. So I definitely think that controller made the console feel next gen. But I wouldn't say I played any, like, Demon's Souls did not feel like it used the controls or like the features of the controller very well, in terms of like feeling, holy cow, this is crazy, like Astro's Playroom did. And I hear that Ratchet and Clank does, but I'm not going to get that game. That's not a game for me, and I'm not going to get Returnal now. So I don't know when I'm going to be playing a game that uses those features next. That's what I'm really curious to find out.
Yeah, so kind of on that, one of my bigger questions when they were showing off the DualSense is that, to me, similar to what I was saying with Xbox, a lot of it just kind of seemed like gimmicks, and I didn't know how much they would actually matter in the long run. So in terms of the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback or whatever, do you think those do actually meaningfully change the way you interact with games, or are they just kind of gimmicks? I guess I'm more speaking on adaptive triggers than haptic feedback, because haptic feedback, it just kind of seems like a general upgrade, but for something like adaptive triggers, especially, is such a different thing. I don't know.
I default, I want to say the triggers, no, but yes, definitely the haptic feedback for sure, 1000%. I wish it was in every game that I played in like implemented really, really well. But the adaptive triggers, while I don't like them, I don't like using them that much, I definitely have had moments where it does work really well. I'm going to use Astro's Playroom for all these examples just because it's so perfect. There is a little thing where you're like collecting figurines, right? And there's all these little like ball capsules, and you have to like grab a lever and pull the lever. So you have this, like, you're taking the controller and you're pulling the trigger for like this robot arm to crush the ball, and then you get the item inside. It's just like you do it repetitive over and over again, but like having that resistance to like crush the ball, it actually felt really, really cool. And then the rumble with that just felt really good. And I just remember, like, it was I don't know, it's like a non-sexual bit of pleasure just popping that little orb and just feeling like the crunch and all the sounds and everything all together just felt really good. And I think that needs to be somehow like replicated in other games, that kind of combination of everything. And then like the haptic feedback, like the raindrops falling on the little robot's like umbrella above his head, and you feeling all the little raindrops on your controller feels so cool. But not only that, like walking through grass and having it rumble in a different way than when you're walking on glass, and where it like kind of makes a tinking kind of like, that's the best example I can give, but you know, like the tink 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 kind of feeling on your hand, and it just works perfectly with the sound you're hearing as well. And then if you choose to have the audio out of your speaker, pretty much everything you can hear out of your speaker is what is being vibrated in your controller. So like if you hear the rain out of your controller, or the sound of you falling through clouds, you can kind of feel the level of the cloud going through the bottom of the controller to the top and like through your hands. And that kind of stuff just feels really, really cool. Makes you feel like you're there. Yeah, you don't need it to make a game good, but it definitely makes you more immersed and makes you feel like you're there controlling the game.
Do you think it will still be as cool in like most games? Because, you know, Astro's Playroom was developed specifically to show those features off. So do you think in just like other Sony first party games, but especially, you know, just Assassin's Creed or whatever, you know, whatever generic third party game that comes out, do you think that it will, though, like, but the haptic feedback,
I know what you're saying.
Do you think that they will still be meaningful, or? But yeah,
I think as long as PlayStation exclusives do it really well, then I would never get sick of it. I think it's going to be really awesome. I really do like having those features in the game. Like it does make me feel like I'm getting more value for playing that game on PlayStation, and I think there's something to say for that. Like I wish that both of those features were in every game I played on any platform. I do actually like having those features a lot. I don't see third parties really embracing it as much as Sony will. But Ghost of Tsushima's director's cut upgrade, I think, is also adding the rumble, the haptic feedback. So I would be interested to try that out just to see how it feels. But I definitely want to see what like the future games that are PS5 exclusive actually do with it. And like I said, I only played Demon Souls back when like the console first launched, and I've only played Master's Playroom that have both like used those features. And then I guess Resident Evil 8, I barely even noticed the thing other than the triggers, making it harder to pull the trigger on like the shotgun or the sniper rifle. Whereas the pistol, you didn't get any resistance whatsoever. But the rumble, didn't really notice anything in Resident Evil 8. So I'm sure if I played Returnal and Ratchet and Clank, then I'm sure I'd have other things to say, but they're just not my like. Returnal was kind of my kind of game, but now I'm not really wanting to spend the money on it, so I'm not going to.
Yeah. Very fair. Trying to think. Is there anything else you want to say about the PS5?
Yeah, just the PlayStation Plus library of games. I know it's not a console thing, but like having a library of games accessible to you for the PS5 if you have PS Plus was pretty sweet. I did have a lot of them already, but just like I don't know how many there is. It's over 20 games for sure, and I think that was really, really cool just having those options. I mean, like if you hadn't played Bloodborne, Days Gone, God of War, Infamous Second Son, the original, or the Ratchet and Clank that got remade on PS4, The Last Guardian, Last of Us Remastered, Until Dawn. I won't go through all of them, but anyways, a bunch of those, like if you hadn't played those, like those are some great games to play. And if you're like, I didn't have a PS4, or I just missed that generation, or I just never played all those games, and then you're getting your new console and then you just get PS Plus, having all those right there, it's not like a direct competitor to Game Pass, but it's definitely nice, and it gives you that same kind of feeling where, okay, I can get the subscription thing, and at least I got a bunch of games right from the get-go. Because that I definitely want to talk about the extra $10 or however much more it ends up being here for PS5 games. The fact that these games cost more is totally fine. I know I just said it sucks a little while ago, but like I think it's fair. I think it's fine. Like a lot of games cost more to make, and that's okay. I think it makes sense for games to go up in price over time, and I think that all games should price however they feel like they need to, and then it's up to the consumer to decide whether it's worth it or not to them to put the money down. That being said, my own personal opinion is that I don't think if it's a PS4 game and a PS5 game, I don't think that they should be different prices. I think it should be the same price. I do, regardless if it's like, oh, you got all these extra new features of the PS5, whatever. It's like, I don't care. It's the same game. You might have some extra features patched in there for this new console, but like, if you're going to tell me, because this is the case, like for the director's cut of Ghost of Tsushima, if you want to pay the $60 for it and you get the PS4 version, or you can pay $70 and you can get the PS5 version that has faster load times, that has a better 3D audio, but the PS4 one already has 3D audio, and then the PS4 one, I haven't played on PS4, but for me on PS5, it already loads pretty quickly. So I would just buy the PS4 version. I can already play it in resolution mode, which makes it look, it must be close to 4K, and it runs like smooth 60 FPS. So like, what am I gaining here other than the haptic feedback? And like, and for maybe $10. Slightly faster loading times for $10. I feel like that kind of difference shouldn't really exist. And that's just me.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think for me, I have mixed feelings on $70 or $90 being the new like full price, in that I think for a lot of games that new extra premium price tag, whatever, just isn't justified. Like I think for something like NBA 2K22, does that game need to be $90? No. Not at all. Like,
Yeah.
they are trying to make more money off of you. They use the same engine, a lot of the same assets. It being that feels kind of stupid. That said, I think your like quadruple A, crazy high budget, experiences, your God of War, your Last of Us 2, those sort of things, I think totally do deserve that price tag. I think $70 is super, super fair for something like that. But what I hope is now that top end price range is going up, I hope publishers are able to explore that range more. I hope $60 or $80 games do still exist. I hope, and Sony's been doing that a bit with their sort of mid-range like standalone expansion games. But I hope even outside of something like that, I hope a game that is something like your Forza Horizon 5, which is a great game, shit ton of content. That said, it's still the same engine as last time. It's a lot of the same assets as last time. It's just kind of a new map, some new features, whatever, new game. I'm going to love it still. But, I don't know if I would pay that extra premium price for it. That seems a little silly given that it's more of a refresh. Or even just a smaller, like 10 to 15 hour AAA game, like a Resident Evil 8, if that was, $90 on PS5. I'm not sure if it is or not. That would feel a little bit silly to me because, that's a very tight, polished, high budget game, but it isn't that, super premium experience. So, yeah, I'm just hoping that they can explore the scale a little bit more. That super high price tag doesn't really piss me off in general. I just think it needs to be used correctly, which we are already seeing examples of it not.
Yeah, just for myself, I feel like having a game that can be played on a last-gen system, if it's not PS5 exclusive, for example, like Ratchet and Clank or Demon's Souls, then I feel like I'm paying more, and it kind of cheapens my experience a little bit. I don't know, it's like a mental thing where it's like if I'm getting something that I know, it's like if I got Ratchet and Clank right now and I know it can only be played on PS5 right now, and even if, let's say, even some weird world in the future where it can be played on PC, I'd still feel like, okay, I'm getting this like premium like game right now, it's only on PS5 right now, like this is really exciting and I'm going to use all these new features and stuff. But like Ghost of Tsushima, if I hadn't played it still, and I'd be looking at this going like, yeah, I'm going to get the PS5 version, but why is it more? Like, I don't like, just because it's on the newer console, like, I don't know, that just kind of seems like it just gives me a bad taste in my mouth. So
same games, the same development cost. Yeah, it shouldn't be more expensive just because you're playing it on a newer system. Especially when it's a Sony first party game where you gave them money for a newer console, and then they kind of backhand you and be like, well, now you got to pay more for games.
Exactly.
Have fun.
Exactly. It just doesn't feel great. So I have one other one real quick. I know we're tight on time, so I just want to really quickly point out the cards system, like UI thing that they have in the PS5, where you can like press the PlayStation button, it pulls up a bunch of cards, and for the most part they're just the trophies you've been closest to acquiring. And in some games that where it supports it, you can like see a little video of if like showing how to get this trophy or how to help get progress towards the certain objective. It can be trophies or objectives or whatever, and if it's supported by the game, it'll have little clips and help you out. I think that's super cool, and I think that's a great little feature to have. I don't know how much it's going to be actually like implemented. I can't see it being implemented much in the future, but if we just focus on the trophies part for a second, I really wish that the cards were not trophies and that you could press your PlayStation button and then you got this little list up on the right side of your screen and just a bunch of rows with all the trophies and the name of them, and then a progress bar just showing how close you are to acquiring them. That'd be great. And then I could select the ones I want to see the actual information, like cut off 300 heads or something like that. I don't know why that's the one I went to, but you know what I mean. And then you're going looking at your progress bars, like, okay, I'm really close to getting that one. What is that one? You can select it and find out. I think that's cool. Or I mean, I think that would be cool. And on top of that, there is something like that on the Xbox. I remember I went into the options for the trophies or for the achievements, and you can actually select a few to put as an overlay in the corner of your screen, and you can just see your progress. I don't really like having it block my screen, but I think that's cool that you can do that. So just wanted to lastly point that out.
Especially if it's like you said, a cut off 300 heads type achievement where it is slow progress and you're just kind of grinding to get it or whatever. I think having it up there would totally be cool, so you can, as you're going, see how much longer you have left, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, how do you think they sort of modernize the UI, or not modernize? How do you think they do a good job of making it feel fresh and unique without just sort of reinventing the wheel and making things new for the sake of being new? Like, do you
Like
think
all of the UI or that screen in particular?
just in general the UI of the console? Because it was like I was saying of the Xbox, where it's functional, and I really like how functional and convenient everything is, but it doesn't feel exciting. Do you think the PS5 strikes a better balance of functional and exciting and new?
The PS5 should just take over the 360 blades menu from back in the day. No, I don't know. I don't know what they could do. I haven't given it a ton of thought, to be honest. But I, other than the trophy part, like that would really make my life a lot easier. I like going for trophies that I'm really close to getting. And I think that's why I would like to have something like that there, just to be like, oh, I'm really close to that one. Okay, I'll try to get it. But I'm not going to go collect 1,000 feathers or whatever for this game just because. But if I'm close to finishing it just naturally, then I'm going to want to do it. So I think that would be really nice to see. But right now it'll show about 3. And that's about it. And you're like, okay, cool, those are 3. And then the description is like cut off every time. So why even bother giving that? Like, just tell me a little progress bar, how close I am, and the name of the trophy, and then at least if I can recognize the name of the trophy, maybe I'll eventually know what one it is and like how close I am to accomplishing it. That's all I need to know. But yeah. So for me, I'm just gonna say it. You don't have to answer this, but like for me, I'm gonna say, like, for my experience, I've really enjoyed having the Xbox a lot more than the PlayStation already. I have only had it for a few weeks, but the PS5 has generally been a Netflix machine. The games that are on there, almost all of the ones that I've been interested in are all PS4 games, except for Demon's Souls. I was extremely excited and I loved playing Demon's Souls back when it came out, but I haven't picked it up since launch, or since I beat it. And I don't think I will, because it still is an old engine game that still plays its old level design, old boss design in a really pretty game. And then yeah, all the games I want to play on it are all PS4 games. Like I said, I just played a bunch of Ghost of Tsushima. I was playing some Last of Us Part 2 on the grounded difficulty again the other day too. Like, it's still a PS4 game. So when am I going to get something that's like new and that I really want to play? I don't know. PS5, sure, it has more exclusives that are like high profile, like 9s right now than Xbox, but for me, it's like hardly any of those are hitting. So they're kind of on a level playing field for me. And Xbox just has that accessibility where I can plop back and forth between my PC and my console and I don't use my phone, but I could. That's the option, and that's really cool. And having that quick resume with multiple apps, multiple games, having my library from my 360 days, from my Xbox One days, and the new games that I want to get, like Yakuza, or having Game Pass and all those hundreds of games, and having more added every week. Like, all that stuff together, it just makes that console so much more fun to turn on and be like, hey, what's new? What do I want to do here? And the PlayStation, I'm like, I might get Horizon Forbidden West if it comes out this year. That's it. That's all I got.
Maybe. Yeah. I think that's kind of showing the strength of Xbox's game strategy right now. Of Sony's very much going for the tried and true, let's have 3 or 4 huge tentpole, massive games that are going to sell crazy and have crazy high budgets. Whereas I think, and that's been very successful for them. Like, there's a reason why they're doing it. These games sell insane numbers, and it gets people to get consoles. But I think Xbox is doing kind of a newer strategy of, let's just have a lot of games. Maybe only 30% of those games will actually click for, everybody. But those 30% that do, then I have 6 or 7 to 10 games coming out of them a year, where, like you said, every time I turn my console, I look at what's new in Game Pass, what's coming up, and I see something that's like, oh, this is crazy. I'm like, out of my mind excited for it. But it comes out, and I'm like, oh, sure, I'll check it out. And I play it for a bit, and I'm like, oh, that was super fun. And I just have a lot of those, like, good fun, glad I experienced it, glad I played it. I don't even know if I'll finish it, but like, I'm just having a good time, And I really hope that they do manage to slide in those tentpole releases, because I think that those are important in addition to what I'm talking about of like the good games, the 7 or 8s out of 10s. And it looks like they are doing that just based off of their E3 lineup and what's coming. But I think Xbox's strategy of its games lineup for the future seems to be stronger for me personally. And part of that's just because I like indie games. I like those types of games speak to me more than the quadruple A experience.
Hold on.
Yeah.
My recording is not doing anything.
Uh-oh.
I'm hoping it's still recording, but it might not be. So I'm going to stop it and start again. Yeah, so my program kind of looked like it was frozen, so I just stopped the recording, and we're continuing now, just because I wanted to make sure everything was working okay. I think we're okay. So moving on, we're going to go right into our top favorite games, our top favorite 50 games of all time. We're on to number 30 this week. And so that being said, I think I'll start this time because mine is a doozy. It's the only time that I do this in our whole list. But way back at the beginning, I remember we discussed something along these lines of basically my game is the Metroid Prime trilogy for the Wii. And it's obviously 3-in-1, right? It's a 3-in-1. So kind of cheating here, but I can't choose my favorite out of those three, and the fact it's on one disc, I'm gonna make it slide. But also that because like 1 and 2 were on the GameCube originally, and those two obviously getting the Wii controls just made them so much better, and that's only available on that disc. So that game is so fun. All three of those games are just so fun. I love having the Wii controller and being able to aim around and shoot and grapple things. And man, if I had to choose, I'll just say it. If I have to choose, I'm going to say Metroid Prime 3 is my favorite because that was the one that actually I really enjoyed the controls with. I loved being able to use the grapple to pull shields off of enemies and then shoot them. I wouldn't say it's the best of the three, but it's my favorite of the three. And it's the one that really I have the most memories playing and getting stuck in. I love the Metroidvania type of games, so I really don't need to dive into it too much. But if you've played Metroid and you like that type of game, or you played Hollow Knight, or you've played Castlevania, I guess, if you like similar games to it, then you should definitely try Metroid Prime. I really hope that Metroid Prime 4 is great when that comes out eventually. I'm really looking forward to seeing that because I actually like the Metroid Prime games more than the side-scroller Metroid games. So just getting different power-ups, different visors, being able to scan the environment, get information and lore on the world. Kind of gives me that feeling almost like Dark Souls when you collect items and you can read the item cards descriptions and you're getting information about the world. Kind of gives me that feeling. Because you can do that with bosses and the enemies in Metroid Prime as well, where you could scan those enemies and get some more information. That was cool. And then I like the puzzles. I like the level designs for all those games. I find it just fun to explore. What's yours?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's interesting that you say 3 is your favorite, because usually that's the opposite from what I hear people. 3 is often the one that I hear as not being bad, but definitely people's least favorite of the trilogy. So yeah, it's cool that one's your favorite. Always like some good unique takes. My number 30 is Metal Gear Solid 2, which is not the highest Metal Gear Solid on this list. There's more. 1 or 2 more, I forget. But Metal Gear Solid 2 definitely stands out as one of the better ones in this series. Story-wise, I would definitely say it's my favorite. I think 3 is pretty close, but 3, I don't actually know if it made my top 50 because it just feels like it doesn't quite lead into as much of why I like Metal Gear in terms of just the kookiness and the weird shit it pulls in the way it sort of messes with the player. And I think 2 does all that its best while also not making it feel gimmicky. It feels way more like it actually is in the game for a purpose, where there's the whole infamous thing of everyone thought you were gonna play as Snake and then Snake fucking dies and you play as this bitch ass Raiden for the whole game. He's very intentionally just sucks. He's whiny and annoying and kind of the worst to play as, and you don't like him. And just doing all those things, story is really weirdly poignant today. It kind of predicted some shit that is impressive for it to predict as a game that came out when it did. But yeah, just really solid game. I don't know how to talk about it too much without just going into like straight up story spoilers. But
what do you like about the Metal
I'll
Gear
just kinda
Solid
leave it at that.
or the Metal Gear games?
I think it's just that it balances tone so well, where it can be funny and serious. Like, it's a very serious story with very serious themes, but it never feels like it's taking itself super seriously. You know, where you'll be going 1 second with a lot of political intrigue, and then your next moment you're fighting like a fat dude on roller skates is throwing bombs at you on the top of a tower. And it's like, and that's but that's a legitimately fun and cool boss fight. It's just goofy as shit when taken out of context. Or an immortal vampire that, all these things that I also think Metal Gear Solid 4 kind of undoes, which I'm not a big fan. But yeah, I think 2 is just the strongest of balancing that tone of having a really serious, kind of convoluted, awesome story mixed with just, wild tone variations, and it's a lot of fun.
Have you played all of them?
No, I haven't played 1 or 4 because I simply not until recently I have not had a PlayStation, and for whatever reason 2, 3, and 5 are the only ones that are on Xbox. So those are the ones I've played. 4, I think I watched a playthrough of, and 1, don't actually know if I ever watched a complete playthrough, but I should. And now that I have a PS2, which is something meant to mention, I got a PS2 working. I've had a PS2 for a while. It's just been a bundle of parts and sucked, but I got it working. But now that I have that, I kind of want to play the first one.
I have a weird
relationship.
I want to play them, but I don't know which one to start with. Like, if I should start with 1 or not, because I haven't played any Metal Gear games. I started 5, but didn't play much of it.
I would say 3 is a really solid starting point, just because more than a lot of other games in the series, it just kind of disregards a lot of the lore and shit. And it's also more modern than 1, which, again, I haven't played 1, so I can't really say for sure how good it feels to play. But 3, I can say, does actually feel good to play. It's a lot of fun. It's got some cool mechanics. And it's a really simple story. It's basically just like a fun spy thriller with some weird, goofy tone stuff, and it's cool. As someone like you who really likes stealth games, with Dishonored and all that, I think it's definitely worth still trying out.
Yeah, I've been interested in for so long. I have no idea if or when I will ever play them, but I feel like it's something I have to experience before I die. I just don't know when that'll be. But it's definitely something that's always intrigued me, and I like stealth games. I like being trying to figure out a way through a level. That's really creative and advantageous to the way they set it up, and I think I would like the games, but yeah, just haven't done it. That's cool. But yeah, let's end the show now. I've got to get going. So if you guys have gotten to the end, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. If you want to check out the podcast, it's on Spotify. Look for the screen peeking logo. That's a circle, not a square. That's the newer one. Zig, do you have anything you want to plug before I finish this off here?
I think so. No, I think pretty good over here.
Right on. Well, until next time, everyone, keep peeking that screen.
Keep peeking that screen. Ooh, simultaneous.
We both remembered this time.